Okay, so next on our agenda is Kathleen Bryan from the University of Cincinnati, and she's going to speak with us about the pre-K associate standards. Kathleen?
Thank you. Before I actually get started in this topic, I just want to share that I've been part of the Higher Ed Summit since its onset 10 years ago. And I just would like to take this opportunity to thank our fearless leader, Judith, for all of the leadership. When we started this 10 years ago, we had different goals, and it's just amazing to think that so many people continue to come and want to gather. Being part of the planning committee, I'm able to read the feedback that you all give every year that Judith said. The evaluations are extremely important to us, and one of the things that people share often is it's just a great time to be able to get lots of updates all in one place. So my portion right now is not as inspirational perhaps as Wendy's just was, but it is informational, so I hope. Also, personally, we have a call to action at the end of this. So I'm just glad for this opportunity to present this, but I also want to honor the dedicated team. Many of them are sitting right here who are behind the information that I'm going to be sharing right now. Andrea Anderson from Tri-C, Lynette Broush from Lorraine, Patricia Maid-Woods from Columbus State, Stacy Mortarelli from Lakeland, Swapna Parander from Sinclair, Amy Thomas from Northwest State, and Tatiana Wells from Tri-C. So it's a very large group that's behind what I'm sharing with you today. I also want to acknowledge that Hillary Swinning from ODHD, I want to thank her because she's the one that provided us with the slides today. So here's the overview. We're going to just briefly talk about how the standard review panels are formed in general, not just for the one that I'm speaking on, the process of updating the standards, a draft of where we are at with the standards now, and then next steps, and that's the call to action. But before I actually get into the first slide, I want to give a little bit of context. Some of you in this room might not know that Ohio offers a pre-K license. The pre-K license is connected to the associate degrees, specifically the AAS degree. AAS stands for the Associate of Applied Science. You heard this in a couple other presentations already. There are other early childhood associate degree programs that do not lead to the pre-K license. There is a program that's the AA degree, which actually stands for an Associate of Arts, and then there's the AS degree, which stands for Associate in Science. Both the AA and the AS degrees, they allow students to transfer to a four-year institution to complete a bachelor's degree in something related, but it's only the AAS programs that lead to the pre-K license. And any of the programs that have the AAS degree, they need to have our programs approved based on the state standards for the pre-K license. And this approval happens about every 5 years. So now I'm backing up a little bit. These are generally things that, and you could read the slides for yourself, but the first bullet point is just how the process begins. And Ohio Department of Higher Education, they manage any educator preparation programs. So everything from pre-K all the way to high school teacher preparation programs, educator preparation programs. And all of them have to go through their own review process. And when they have to go through this review every 5 years, there is a panel that is put together that are full of subject matter experts. When this panel was put together, they looked at the Ohio 2-Year Coalition, which is a coalition of associate degree programs in early childhood, as the subject matter experts for this. And then institutions with approved programs are asked for nominations for members. Again, most of the people, we are from many different institutions, so we met that need there as well. The process of updating the standards, the current standards are reviewed and determined if they can be updated or if they need to be fully edited. And we can use what's called the SPA, which is the Specialized Professional Association. In our case, that's NAEYC. That's our professional association. So back in 2022, there was a review of the existing standards. They unfortunately never really went out for lots of public comment. That's going to be my final ask today, is that I would like you all to really engage in public comment on the standards that I'm presenting today. But in 2022, that didn't happen. So in 2023, a lot of the programs that offer the associate pre-K license, our approvals were expiring. So we all got together, asked Hillary for some guidance on this, and that's when it was uncovered that the standards were looked at and reviewed, but never sent out for public comment and reviewed. So we're kind of all under a extension right now, so that we are not out of compliance. And if you ever needed a letter to go for your NAEYC accreditation or something, they're happy to provide that for us. But it gave us an opportunity to really pause, put together a larger working team, who I've just acknowledged, to really dive in and look at each of the standards. We got together at the end of spring. We split up in 2 groups, and we tackled the 6 standards in 2 different teams. And then we came together on September 6th to review all of them, in hopes that today, as I show you them, you'll know what they look like, but then most importantly, you will look to every place in your institution of higher ed, if it's being sent to you, but also for public comment. So that's kind of the process. And I would like to pause on this, and I'm not going to go through and read every single one, but I wanted to highlight standard number 1, as the working group looked at this and said, this is a chance for us to redevelop standard 1. And that's the one that took all the groups a lot longer time to wrap our heads around. But it was just starting off with the theory and brain development and all those things at the beginning. Standard 2 was environment, standard 3 curriculum and instruction, 4 was observation assessment, standard 5 families and communities, and standard 6 professionalism. A lot of these should look similar. And I don't expect you to read this, but I want you to look and see what they, kind of the scope of them. And this is what is going to come out for public comment. So there's standard 1, where we did more of a global view of theory and development. Environments, 6 different ones. Then we got into the curriculum and instruction, and through a lot of the conversations, we were able to have deep conversations as far as, is this something that is an environmental thing, or is this curriculum, or is it both? And but it had to go somewhere, because at the end of the day, we have to prove how we are meeting these standards. Standard 4, observation and assessment. We were able to get those into 4 categories there. Standard 5, families and community. And standard 6, I'm going to spend an extra minute on here, because the very last one that's highlighted in yellow is a result of a lot of conversations about the workforce, what is needed, some of the challenges, as well as the confusion for many years as far as how many hours are needed of supervised practicum experience. We've already addressed the concept that our students can be paid for their practicum, which is a huge win. I know that Mike kind of made it look like it was an easy thing. From those of us that have been in the trenches, this is something that we have fought for a very long time. So we arrived at 200 hours being a reasonable time where students would be under supervised practicum. How each institution chooses to accomplish those 200 hours is up to your program approval process. So at this time, I'm pretty much at the end of the presentation. I really want to highlight the next steps and see if there are questions. But the Ohio Department of Higher Ed and the panel, we're working on, you'll see the first draft. That was just a little preview there. You'll actually see the official first draft, and that it'll be posted for public comment. I had hoped today to have a date in mind, like look for it, on October 1st or something. I don't have an exact date. But here is a website, and again, these slides will be made available to you, so that'll be a live link. But I would like every single person in this room to take a look at what you think our committee has come up with as far as preparing students for the work that you are all a part of. So even if you think, I don't have anything to do with higher education, you're here because you have something to do with whether it's young children, policy making. I would like every single set of eyes on this, and every comment will be considered. I am just the messenger today. Hillary is the one that is heading up this work, so all of her contact information is there as well. And she does send her well wishes. She hopes she could have been here today, but she was double booked, as many of you in that wear many hats are. So I'll take a moment to answer any questions or see if you have any just general comments, but I promise you I don't have questions. I'm going to start with my committee first.
Can you go back
Sure.
a couple to number, okay. So I just wanted to point out with the whole 200, which is a switch for all of us. I know some of us are, so we did include that 6.5, which says candidates participate in diverse classroom settings prior to supervised practicum experiences. So there was that diverse piece before, and there was discussion about whether people do it as observation or practical hours or whatever. So this kind of left it open, and we wanted to still value the idea of being in different types of centers before, so especially if somebody's gonna go do student teaching in their workplace, we wanted to make sure that they saw other places at some time somewhere. So it left it a little bit more open-ended to people who want to do, and this is a minimum, obviously.
Right.
But I just wanted to point out that that diverse settings thing is still there. We just kind of reworded everything to hopefully make it meet people's needs and reduce some of those barriers, so.
Actually, I was thinking you might also add to the sixth one, because that's a minimum as well. So we're saying 200 hours minimum. If you think there needs to be more in your institution, that's fine too, so.
And Andrea,
Oh,
there's no minimum, there's no set time frame for the diverse
Correct.
experience.
Yeah, so that's a big change. So it used to be, those of you who aren't in higher ed and don't remember, it used to be 300 hours.
right.
And it was worded differently, and it said diverse experiences, but that was never really defined either. So it was kind of, we wanted to still leave that open because all of us still do that in a lot of different ways. But the big charge here was, a big piece of this puzzle was that new, they can get paid and do it
Right.
at work. And so we all talked about how a lot of people really wanted the hours reduced, but we all still wanted them to see places that were not just their workplace.
But
So we wanted to still include that somewhere, but there was no, we didn't agree on a minimum amount for that.
Right.
But they can't necessarily stay at their program for those 200 hours.
They could,
They can now.
yes. If they're going to be paid,
That's amazing.
they need to be able, but,
Yeah.
yes.
Because we don't want them to spend all their time at their workplace, like they
Right.
should see other places.
But
Yeah.
if they're under employment, then yeah, they're kind of
But
stuck,
everybody
yeah.
handles that differently, so we
Exactly, yeah.
be too specific.
And just as a reminder, this is the draft, so
Right.
keep asking questions, but we're not here to defend all these, this is just putting it out there, but I'm really glad you're clarifying that. I saw your hand over there.
I was just curious, we have 210 for our student teaching, but we have 60 or 90 hours before that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yep.
And now you're saying like there's no minimum requirement before that time?
Well, if these go through, that would.
So, yeah, again, we're not saying it, this is what the committee's putting forward. So if you have questions about it, but there's also other requirements in other foundations courses and things that some institutions use them for adding up some of those hours too, like in child development or foundations of ECE, some of those courses have some observation requirements, and so some institutions use and put those all together,
We
so.
wanted to make it so that people could reduce them if that met their needs, but don't need to if they're fine the way they are.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right.
Right. So I'm just curious, like how many hours before practicum do two-year colleges require their students out in the field?
Well, everybody does it so different, even just on our committee. Some
Yep.
people do like 100-hour, semesters. Like, so we at Tri-C do 100-hour practicum and a 200-hour student teaching, plus observations scattered about and different things. So
And
we
it-
have
yeah.
over 300 hours, well over 300 hours.
Same at the University of Cincinnati, we do 140 hours before they do their 210 hours of supervised practicum.
Yeah.
But going forward, once we have to go through standards approval, this could open up a lot of possibilities for reworking things in our current institutions as well. If we see that friction points, I feel like that's a name for a concept for the day, but there are friction points for our students to get all those hours, especially if they're already employed. So it's an opportunity to look again at how your institutions are meeting this, so. Yes,
I was just curious, I was noting in 6.5 that you used the word prior to supervised practicum. And I was just wondering if you know, I don't know if you can share or not, but was that to kind of, because it says prior, so if they're doing their practicum or their student teaching in their workplace, then it would mean they had something before getting there, like that would be their diversity before, so.
Yeah.
Right. Or if they're, you know, if they're employed throughout their whole time earning their degree, they would have to go elsewhere to get
The diverse.
that diverse piece.
Well,
Yeah.
That's where the prior is.
Yeah, and we worded it the way we did as diverse classroom settings, like participate in, because we wanted observations to count too. So I think that it's not just, when we discussed it, the thought behind it was, we didn't want to say field work, because depending on how people have it all, like they might have it all lumped in student teaching, but, you know, that diverse setting, it just kind of left it open to whatever you think that looks like for your community. You know, diversity in Cleveland's gonna look different than diversity in Defiance, like, you know, so that's kind of how we worded it.
And we
I think
included
that- I
diversity
think
to
the,
include different types of curriculum that you're going to see
Yeah.
at different places, as well as different age groups, you know,
I think
typically
it-
work preschool, see toddler, et cetera.
No,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
glad the discussion happened, and it will go out for public comment.
Yes, yeah.
But I think, you know, this whole idea of being able to do your hours where you work, in a sense, could get sticky, but depending on, you know, the student population you're working with, but to have something in standards that says we're following these standards.
Right.
But I know they're open to public comment, and it's not solidified, but.
Correct.
I don't remember, was it Swapna that said, so I do think if you public comment, I think a good thing to put is if this is gonna be a problem for you in some way, was it Swapna that said it was gonna be maybe an issue? Because
Yeah, she
Oh.
said that whatever the minimum hours were, that's all her.
Her institution would allow,
Yes.
yeah.
So her institution was not going to let her go above and beyond what the minimum was. So I would encourage people, if they're feeling like that's gonna be a hurdle for them too, to mention that.
Right.
So those are the kind of things like, you know, this is obviously not set in stone yet, but everybody put their opinions and put what affects them and how, you know, all that stuff. So make sure you comment like Kathleen said.
As specific as possible. Also, a couple people have asked me about the timeline. You know, a lot of us are anxious because our programs are not currently approved, but we also don't want to rush this as well. So I think the public comment window will be open, and then they will take those comments, bring them back, and I would think in the spring is when we would see the official.
Will there be multiple ways to announce that when they're open for comment? Because that was one of the things. So I know the coalition, I don't know if Judith has a list too.
That's a good idea.
I mean, reaching out to higher ed and
Yeah.
make sure that there's multiple ways maybe.
Exactly, and that's kind of why self-servingly being part of the planning committee, I was like, is there any way we can, you know, have this call to action so it's here, you all can share it to everyone that you come in touch with. And then, yeah, I do find, though, if something goes out on a listserv, most of us will flag it and maybe never go back to it. But if you say to somebody that you know, this is really important and here's this window, I think that's probably one of the most effective ways.
I agree with that, but I think to say, hey, did you get that link? You know, you are on this list, you are part of this whole thing. Like, that's an important link. It
Right.
also has helped.
Well, and I know at University of Cincinnati, it's going to go to somebody way above me, and it's going to sit in their email box, and they won't know who to send it to. So unless I was at this meeting today, I wouldn't see this link. So it depends on where you're all coming from. But share the information, and thank you so much for giving me the time today to share what our committee has been working on. So please take advantage of this link.